again, Dinky Danny here. Today I'd like to go over one of my favorite video game accessories of all time. It was an adapter released in the mid-1990s for the Sega Genesis. I was really privileged to have this growing up, and a lot of you out there have probably heard of it, and the device is called the Sega Channel. I'll go into a little bit more description, but for those of you who don't know what the Sega Channel was, basically it's an adapter that would plug into the top of your Sega Genesis, and it was through your cable provider, just your television cable provider, and you would be able to have access to up to 50 games a month, and every month you would get 50 new games, and then at the end of the month it would cycle out and you would get 50 new games. So basically you were able to be playing games that you wouldn't be able to afford. You could test games out, play them for a little bit, save your games, and the next month you could download 50 brand new games. So let's take a look at this device in a little bit more detail. So here's a look at the top of the adapter. Of course you have the Sega Channel logo here on the label. You have a power LED, so when you plug this into the Sega Genesis and turn it on, you can see that it was functioning. And over here you have a menu button, and I'll go over the menus a little bit more later in this review. But basically you'd press this menu button and on your television a different menu would come up and you could choose what games you want to download. A bunch of different options that I'll talk about in a little bit. On the back here you have the AC power adapter plug. And I still have the original AC power plug. It says Sega Channel on there. Has the model number. And here's the coaxial cable. Basically that was the cable that would come to your house from your cable provider. And instead of plugging it into your VCR or your television, you would just plug it into here. And that would give you your access to all the games and the features that the Sega Channel enabled. Down here on the bottom, this is the part that you actually plug into the Sega Genesis. And on the front here you can see that the model I have is a Scientific Atlanta. That was the first model, and there was another one later that was General Instruments, and that was like the second printing of this device. So basically what you would do with this is you plug it into the top of your Sega Genesis, right like that. And it would just sit on the top there, and you plug in the cable from your cable provider, and you would plug in the power adapter and turn it on. So I'll show you a little bit about what the menus look like and go over a little bit about what the features this Sega Channel had. It was really cool. It was released in 1994 and it was way ahead of its time. Really fun to play back then, and looking back on it I just can't believe that it worked so well. Alright, I've got the Sega Channel plugged in, hooked up. I'm just going to turn on the Sega Genesis and show you what the main menu looks like. And of course that's what comes up now. Attention, your Sega Channel adapter is not receiving the signal properly. Of course that's because my cable provider, the Sega Channel function, is not actually still available. But back when this was released in the mid-90s, you turn it on, and instead of this menu you would see a menu of 50 different video games, all kinds of different Sega Genesis games, a bunch of different options that you could choose from, and it was really cool. I have some footage from back when it was available from VHS recordings, so I'm going to show you what some of the menus looked like back then and go over a little bit of what the Sega Channel had to offer.
With Sega Channel, you get up to 50 different video games per month for one low monthly price. That's about $2,500 worth of video games. You know how many lawns you got them all to get that? A whole bunch. But no, you get them 24 hours a day with Sega Channel. Value, variety, convenience. Sega Channel is where it's at. Hey, stop just watching TV. Start playing it. Sega Channel.
So back in the mid-90s, when you turn the Sega Channel on, here's what you would see. Then when you hit the start button, you'd enter the menu screens where you could flip through all the game categories, and you could choose from 50 different games for that month, and you would click on the game, download it in less than a minute, and you'd be able to play the game as if it was the cartridge in your Sega Genesis. Some other cool features that were in these menus is there were sample and unreleased games, special versions of games like Earthworm Jim, and even sometimes there would be games that were not released in the US like Pulse Man and Mega Man The Wily Wars. Also there was a tips and cheats section So if you went into that section, it would give you some codes for the games that were available that month, things like that, tips on how to beat them. And what I thought was really cool, and I didn't really remember from back when I used to play this, is there were even some competitions where you could play games, and if you could do certain things you could win arcade machines and a bunch of different prizes. The one here is even for Vector Man 2. They were looking for people to submit art that Vector Man could morph into, and the winner would be put into Vector Man 2, and just cool things like that that were only available on the Sega Channel.
There's no way I could play all these games if it wasn't for Sega Channel.
I think it's very economical, and it keeps my kids at home.
There are more games than I've ever seen on Sega Channel.
Test drives. You'll be playing video games that have just been released or soon to be released. These games are so new, it's like looking into the future.
As a mom, what I really like is Sega Channel's parental lockout feature. The video game rating system is simple and easy to understand. Just 5 game categories. The ones that I don't want my kids to play, I just lock them out. I want control over what my kids are playing. And with Sega Channel, I have it.
Setting up to play is easy with Sega Channel. Here's how it works. Take the Sega Channel adapter from your cable company and plug it into the Sega Genesis. Turn on the Sega Genesis and the TV. Up comes the Sega Channel screen. And then you get a menu of the game category. Pick your category. Pick your game. It downloads. And bingo, you've got it. Just in case you've got any questions, you can call up full instructions for every game on Sega Channel. Now I'm ready to play what I want, when I want, for as long as I want.
The Sega Channel really was far ahead of its time. It allowed me to play so many games that I wouldn't have been able to afford in the mid-90s when I was younger. And it was just a lot of fun testing out games and playing games that I might have missed out on if I hadn't had the Sega Channel. It's one of my favorite video game accessories, and even though the Sega Channel isn't still active today, it's an important piece in my video game collection.
Today is the day you stop just watching TV and start playing. Welcome to Sega Channel, the only channel where you actually play video games. Sega Channel pumps 24 hours of brain-blistering, thumb-twitching Sega action into your home. Sega Channel. This isn't cable TV you watch, it's cable TV you play. Your Genesis is hooked up to about 50 games a month. The hottest games like Sonic and Knuckles, Earthworm Jim, a special version of Super Street Fighter 2, and more. You get tips on secret moves and hidden levels, and only Sega Channel lets you test drive the newest games before they come out. Play what you want, when you want, for as long as you want for one monthly fee. Sega Channel. Stop just watching TV.